Latest G7 development. US President Donald Trump has met with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba on the sidelines of the summit. G7 leaders are trying to find common ground on the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. But tensions flared early after US President Donald Trump criticised the group's past decision to remove Russia. Standing alongside Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, Trump said the G8 made a mistake when it kicked out Russia in 2014 after the annexation of Crimea. He argued that if Russia had stayed in the group, President Putin might not have invaded Ukraine in 2022. Trump said Putin communicates only with him and not with anyone else, and that the Russian president remains upset about Russia's removal from the group, a feeling Trump says he understands. Well, joining us to discuss this ongoing summit is Megha Sharma, our Senior Executive Editor at NewsX World. She's joining us from Banff in Alberta, close to where this summit is taking place in Canada. Megha, thank you ever so much for joining us once again. Let's look at these meetings that are taking place. Another bilateral talk has happened recently between Donald Trump and Shigeru Ishiba. We've had confirmation that Keir Starmer has met with Emmanuel Macron as well, the leader of the UK and France. Earlier meetings taking place as well, including Donald Trump and Mark Carney, the two border nations. What updates do you have for us?
Right, there are a flurry of activities taking place, and yes, bilaterals also are on the agenda, as we can see many of them right now in continuation. Of course, the Canadian Prime Minister is going to be holding bilaterals with all the leaders of the G7 as well as the invitee nations, the 6 of them that are coming. They're already in the process of coming. Some of them have arrived. The others are going to be arriving later in the evening today. I'm going to focus on the agenda that has been set by the Canadian Prime Minister to hold the G7 Leaders Summit. He's spoken particularly about peace and security. He has sought support from the G7 nations to fight transnational crime and foreign interference. He's also spoken at length about the need for the supply chains to be augmented when it comes to critical minerals. And finally, he also spoke about how there needs to be facilitation of private investment, and all this can happen by way of the G7 nations cooperating with each other. This is what he also spoke at the working session of the G7 leaders that happened a few hours ago. And with regards to the bilaterals that US President Donald Trump is holding, the latest one that has just gotten over with his Japanese counterpart Ishiba is the number one thing he already said when that bilateral was happening with the Canadian Prime Minister. He said that the focus is going to be about tariffs, the focus is going to be about trade, and that's exactly what his agenda is, and that's exactly what must have been the talks between Japan and United States, because there have been heavy tariffs that have been levied on Japan as well in the past few months. Again, a halt of sorts that is in place, but deal needs to be negotiated before July when the deadline ends. Japan, of course, is a manufacturer of automobiles, its steel industry, and talking about semiconductors. So what the Japanese head of state would ideally desire is waiving off of the tariffs that have been levied by the Trump administration on Japan, which will help in further improving forex for Japan, further ensuring more exports to United States of America, and of course this all boils down to the one message that went out from Carney, that there is a need for cooperation amongst G7 nations, and by cooperation he was hinting at US President Donald Trump signing on those deals and coming to the negotiating table to strike deals and agreements that are going to be mutually beneficial to all the G7 nations.
Yes, Mega, and those bilateral talks and discussions taking place with the leaders of the group of 7 nations, but there are several other countries who will be represented with their leaders across the coming hours and days. What more can you tell us about who will be attending and what the significance of that is?
Okay, so we understand that the NATO chief Mark Rutte is going to be arriving later in the evening. We also understand that the World Bank President Ajay Banga will also be arriving later in the evening. The Mexican President Sheinbaum is also scheduled to arrive, and then Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also arrive at around 7 p.m. local time. Meanwhile, there are not going to be any more bilaterals, at least not from the Canadian side. There could be, there could be more bilaterals that Donald Trump may hold with the other leaders, heads of states who have arrived. A number of press conferences have been planned. They have been scheduled for the next day, which is the 3rd day of the G7 summit, and also the closing day of the G7 leaders summit. There are going to be press conferences that are going to be held by Donald Trump, by Emmanuel Macron, the French president, by the German Chancellor Frederick Merz, as well as the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. So it is going to be important to make note of what these leaders are going to say after the conclusion of their bilaterals and the working session of the G7 leaders. Again, a question mark on whether Trump is going to sign the joint G7 statement on Iran and the emerging situation from there, whether he will be persuaded by the other G7 nations to sign that agreement remains to be seen. And also we are yet to get any intimation on when is the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is going to be arriving. I think most likely he should be arriving sometime later today, and he of course is steadfast on its agenda of getting an opportunity to meet President Trump and putting his case across to him on ensuring that on persuading Trump that US must impose more sanctions, and there should be freezing of assets of the Russian government, the Russian industry, and also about putting price caps on energy resources belonging to Russia, especially the Russian oil. So those are all important aspects that we will be keeping an eye on, and yeah, those press conferences will give us quite the insight into what has happened at the G7 working session today, as well as the bilaterals that these leaders are going to hold later on tomorrow.
Yes, and Mega, before we let you go, of course, something that is continuing to escalate is that conflict between Israel and Iran. Further updates coming through of strikes from both sides. How significant is this regional tension in the Middle East to the G7 summit? What has been said already, and what can we expect to be said on that matter?
Well, it is significant, and the G7 nations, at least the 6 out of the 7, are wanting to discuss this and deliberate upon this, and that's even they've already built a draft statement, the joint draft statement. The signatures of the G7 leaders will then put a stamp on what they intend to do and communicate to the world, and particularly to Iran and Israel, and also the United Nations and the IAEA with regards to how they want to get themselves involved in tackling the issue. But I think that their involvement in the Israel and Iran conflict is going to remain limited, because as the Iranian president said, that all that Trump needs to do is get on a phone call and instruct Netanyahu to stop the attacks, and that would lead to a complete ceasefire. So the role of Britain and France, Germany, Italy, Japan is sort of insignificant at this point of time, although these leaders, particularly Japan and Germany, have made strong comments against Iran's use of nuclear arsenal, building its nuclear weapons. And just a few hours ago, there was information pouring in that the British and French and the German heads of states are going to be calling the Iranian president and speak to him over a phone call to pass their message, which is in unanimity, that there needs to be de-escalation, and the world cannot allow, G7 cannot allow Iran to build its nuclear arsenal, and demand Iran to stop its nuclear enrichment activities on its soil. So that's that. But Trump definitely went on and said that he has no desire whatsoever to discuss Iran and Israel conflict at the G7 summit. But then again, I don't know if this is going to change in a few hours' time. Maybe he signs the joint statement of the G7 on Iran, remains to be seen. But as of now, his stance remains really clear. He does not. It seems as if he doesn't really care what the other G7 nations have to say about this. He has been going on his it's sort of a go it alone in its support to Israel, and also a strong, very clear statement that if Iran strikes Israel, the United States is going to come out in defense of Jerusalem.
Megha Sharma, thank you ever so much for joining us. We will hear some more from you later as we get further information about discussions ongoing between leaders of the Group of Seven. We're also joined as well by Adrian Calamel. Adrian, thank you for being back with us. We've just spoken about the ongoing Israel-Iran tensions. I want to look at the wider stability of the world at this moment. Civil wars ongoing, new leaders elected, regime changes, of course a conflict in Europe which has ramifications, a Middle East that is currently in turmoil. Mark Carney opened up by talking about stability in the world needing the Group of Seven. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, the Group of Seven here, it would be nice if everybody worked in coordination and tried to put out these fires that are all over the globe. But fact is, a lot of these leaders have been on watch while these fires have been set. Some of them are a result of direct policies from certain governments. You look at countries such as France, who's come out, and trying to do something, and urging caution with and trying to get Khamenei to the peace table and asking for restraint. They're culpable. The German leadership, the British leadership, they're all culpable. They've been trying to negotiate this and do the diplomatic dance for well over 20 years, and it's just gotten them to we had reached the point of no return, and Israel's going to act in its own best interests. We have to look at the Islamic Republic, and they have been setting fire to the region since 1979. And also just terrorize their population. It's a fear state. It's a control state. It's a terrorist state. And the world will. I think stability can come behind this if there is an actual change in leadership and the regime, because there are figures out there, and the Iranian people have a long history of dealing with civic institutions and voting and elections until this kind of cancerous regime took over in 1979 and has really kept 90 million people in bondage.
Yes, I'm going to bring in our next guest, who is Martin Sa-Arrayas, an international affairs expert who is joining us from Quito in Ecuador. Martin, I want to shift focus away from the Middle East and look at another conflict that is ongoing, Russia-Ukraine. We heard Donald Trump earlier talk about the fact that Russia was removed from what was then the G8, saying that that is potentially a reason why a full-scale invasion took place in 2022. Also referencing, however, that too much had happened since then for Russia's reintroduction. What message is Trump trying to send with this sort of comment?
I think this comment tries to conciliate the relationship between Russia and the Western powers. Donald Trump wants to mediate and to give another chance to Putin to show the world that he can improve his strategy, and that also the problem is also that some Western countries are pushing too much, and that giving too many sanctions to Russia can even put the situation in a dangerous scale. So I think Trump wants to be, again, a mediator. He tries to use diplomacy, soft diplomacy, before starting a bellic war. And I think that's his strategy, to give opportunities to both sides, basically.
Yes, and Martin, of course, North America has been facing uncertainty over tariffs as well. It's not just North America, it is across the world. But with Claudia Sheinbaum also set to attend as a guest and a non-G7 nation, what can we expect from that meeting that we know is going to take place between Sheinbaum, Trump and Carney, given the instability that has been seen in markets relating to fentanyl, specific trade like the trade of automobiles, lumber, steel and aluminium as well?
I think this can be a huge opportunity for both countries to get closer. I think the last weeks have been hostile for the relationship between the US and Mexico. From one side, Claudia Sheinbaum has been accused of supporting the LA riots, and she has denied, and also she has been commenting about how she supports the immigrants that are currently living in the US. On the other hand, Trump several times have been saying that his relationship with Sheinbaum is pretty good. However, the actual relationship is a little bit not that great like before, because the US is facing with this immigration crisis, with this drug crisis, and a lot of dangers that are coming from the border, and Trump wants to be serious and strong against these threats against the US. So I think there has been a lack of communication between these two leaders, and this lack of communication can be improved in this G7 convention, and I think it's a huge opportunity to make things clear and put each country's interests in front.
Yes, absolutely. Trade is a big talking point. Martin, I will stay with you. We know that a bilateral discussion between Japanese leader Shigeru Ishiba and US leader President Donald Trump has taken place. We know discussions have been ongoing. That's been confirmed by both sides. Could this be a turning point for those nations that are yet to come to a deal with the US administration ahead of that 8th of July deadline?
Of course, I think Japan is a very potential closer ally to the US in these times where the US is having a crisis between the West. Europe is having a clash with Trump's interests. We see that the European Union is trying to focus its trades to other nations because of the new commercial policies of Donald Trump. So I think this can be a positive involvement and development for the Trump administration.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Martin. I'm now going to bring in Eric Wahlberg, who is a political analyst who is joining us from Toronto. I want to shift our focus solely for the moment, Eric, to Mark Carney. I've said this evening into the morning several times he is somewhat of a political newcomer, having previously worked in finance as the leader, governor of the Bank of England, as well as in Canada too. Is this going to be a step up in terms of what he has faced so far? Of course, a campaign and an election that he won is good practice, but he won't have had discussions at this scale directly with this number of world leaders before. And is that going to be a daunting task, or one that he will take in his stride?
Well, in terms of meetings like this G7, Carney is a very good leader to have, because he's very suave. He's a good speaker. He's very knowledgeable about world politics and, or certainly world finance. So that's why he was really elected, because people are worried about, Canadians are very worried about the damage that the U.S. can do through its erratic policies and the unknowns, big unknowns with the U.S. But in terms of social welfare, I think this will be a very cold, cruel reign of Carney. He's a banker. He's interested in balancing budgets, and he's interested in pipelines, in oil and gas. This is traditionally what bankers have pumped money into, is resources. So, and I don't really see any sign that he's become a born-again green character. He's very much the gray eminence, this banker in control. So Trudeau we will look back fondly, I would think, in terms of spending on, for instance, the dental care. That was with the NDP too. So that minority government with a stronger NDP was actually a very productive period in the Canadian political scene. But now we're back to this more straight and narrow balanced budgets. I don't really know. I don't have a very good feeling of how things will develop, because also we really, Canada needs to make up with its northern neighbor. It's ridiculous that we cut off all relations with Russia. This is just absolutely insane, because whether we like it or not, Russia is the Arctic power, and we should be at least number 2. But instead, we're still part of this Slava Ukraine, defeat Russia. We're still stuck in that. And there again, Trump gave a new view, which Carney could have picked up on and moved in. I mean, we're always following the U.S. Well, here is one case where following the U.S. would have been very, very good for us to pull away from Europe and its mad policies of trying to destroy Russia. But instead, he went, and his first visit was to King Charles and Macron. So he's the Canada, English, French colonial background. That's what he emphasized, which is so foolish, because Trump despises that. And you want to get on the good side of Trump? Well, show that we are, an independent nation. We don't need any King Charles, and we don't need Europe to go and scurry to try and hide behind the skirts of Macron. So that's very foolish. So again, I'm worried about this reign of Carney and how it will affect us as Canadians. Anyway, that's
yes, Eric. I just want to thank Adrian Calamel and Martin Saar-Reyes for joining us earlier. Of course, this G7 summit is happening as a flashpoint in the Middle East, has taken over geopolitical uncertainty and thoughts, though Trump has made it clear he does not want to discuss this issue, given his support for Israel. And we now are bringing you some live visuals of the US and UK leaders walking together, Donald Trump and Keir Starmer. I believe we are going to be able to hear them as they speak in front of press. Once they start talking, we will bring that to you. We're just waiting for audio to bring you in to what we might be seeing here.
The level of enthusiasm is very good, but the relationship that we have is fantastic. So I just want to congratulate you.
Well, Donald, thank you very much. This now implements on car tariffs and aerospace, our really important agreement. And so this is a very good day for both of our countries, a real sign of strength. So thank you again, Donald. A really important day for both of us.
Great people, great people.
Has anything changed in the agreement since you spoke on the phone from the Oval Office?
Not much.
Nope.
Not much.
This is implementing.
Can I ask you a question, please? G7 leaders are calling for de-escalation in Israel and Iran, but you are the key to unlocking that.
That's right. And here I am.
And here you are.
Yeah.
So can I ask you, sir, have you spoken to Prime Minister Netanyahu? When might you speak to him?
I've spoken to everybody.
What will you say?
Israel is doing very well, as you probably noticed. And I gave Iran 60 days, and they said no. And the 61st, you saw what happened. Day 61. So I'm in constant touch. And as I've been saying, I think a deal will be signed, or something will happen, but a deal will be signed. And I think Iran is foolish not to sign one.
Mr. President, Iran is accusing Netanyahu of attacking them to deliberately derail your nuclear plan that you had. What do you say to that? Do you think that's...
Yes, we had some sync issues there. A question that we heard relating to the Iran-Israel conflict. Trump saying that a deal will be done, a rhetoric that he shared previously in a Truth Social post, comparing it to a deal that was made between India and Pakistan. The significance, just to bring you some context on some earlier updates, not just from today at the G7 summit, but also earlier on. This comes as the US and the UK agreed a framework on a trade deal. This after Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. The United Kingdom able to make a deal with Trump independently after leaving the European Union. We had updates earlier that there were further comments coming in from the leaders.
That
Here and
Israel
now.
can guarantee the UK won't be
And don't forget, sanctions cost us a lot of money. When I sanction a
Yep, we're
country,
proceeding with
that
that.
costs
It's
the
a really
U.S. a
important
lot
deal.
of money, a
I think
tremendous
President
amount
was
of
doing
money.
a
It's not
review.
just
We did a review
let's
when we
sign a
came into
document.
government.
You're talking about billions and billions of
really
dollars.
important.
Sanctions are not that easy. It's not just a one-way street.
Yes, still further audio issues. So let's just discuss the context I was providing you there. So this deal, the framework of a deal was made. We brought you that live on air when the two had a phone call. Keir Starmer in the UK and Trump in the US. And earlier today, we heard that implementation would be expected very shortly for that trade deal. This is the first after Trump's Liberation Day tariff, calling on nations to come and go to the negotiating table to make their deal. This is the first, seemingly, that is being enacted. Trump has said that Starmer and me are friends, and the US and the UK are long-time allies. This discussion has been in the making. We know bilateral conversations are ongoing, and this is the first concrete announcement that we've had from this G7 summit. With so much going on, trade is a clear point of discussion. We understand as well that Japanese leader Shigeru Ishiba has spoken with Trump. Trade, the key point potentially in those discussions. Let's listen in.
I think we're doing pretty well. We're talking.
You don't think
We have a thing called the telephone, so we're talking. But
President,
it's always better to talk in person.
Mr. President, do you want to see regime change in Iran?
I want to see no nuclear weapon in Iran, and we're well on our way to making sure that happens.
We've had a discussion about that this morning. There's
you
a
can
in the
de-escalate.
G7 absolute clarity in relation to the nuclear program. We do not want to see it.
Mr. President, millions of people are so anxious about.
What? The UK is very well protected. You know why? Because I like them. That's why. That's their ultimate protection. Thank you very much. The Prime Minister's done a great job. I want to just tell that to the people of the United Kingdom. He's done a very, very good job. You know, he's done what other people, they've been talking about this deal for 6 years, right?
6 years.
And he's done what they haven't been able to do. So he's done really a very good job.
One more, Canada, now that you're here, do you still think it should be criticizing you, saying that you were complicit in the war?
I don't know what Tucker Carlson is saying. Let him go get a television network and say it so that people listen.
And quickly, have you spoken to Zelensky before your bilat?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Japan?
A lot of them. Could happen.
How'd it
What
go
happened?
with the Japanese, sir?
Well,
Thank you.
Going on 51st date.
Well, yes, the two leaders walking away there. We had an interrupted feed coming through to us there with some audio issues. So I will read out some of the big talking points. It's not just trade, but trade is something that was discussed there. Trump saying that he has signed the document finalising the trade deal with Britain. That was expected. It has now been confirmed. We joined with the audio there just as this conversation around Iran was finishing. We heard Keir Starmer say all of the G7 nations are in agreement over nuclear, and that's relating to Iran. Trump has said that he wants to see no nuclear weapon in Iran. Starmer saying that is a point that all the nations are in agreement with. Trump continues to say that Iran wants to make a deal and that Iran should have signed the deal that was sent by the US on a nuclear deal. But there, of course, have been disagreements. Iran say that the deal that the US proposed was a non-starter because it called for the stop of all uranium enrichment. That, of course, has been a green light in which Israel has seen that these talks will not go any further, and that's why they have decided to carry out their strikes on nuclear and military facilities. I also want to bring up a point that Trump made about the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Keir Starmer, one of the leading nations in Europe who has been pushing the coalition of the willing, the group of Ukrainian allies. Starmer has hosted lots of countries, part of this group and outside of this group, to discuss support for Ukraine at Chatham House in London, at other places as well. Trump saying that he's waiting to impose sanctions on Russia in hopes that a deal will get done. 2 rounds of direct talks between Russia and Ukraine, mediated by Turkey, have taken place in Istanbul. They have seemingly not got any closer to a ceasefire deal. A 30-day ceasefire deal was proposed by the US, adopted by Ukraine and Western allies. As the move forward, Trump has been pushed to place sanctions on Russia, to put the pressure on Russia to agree to that 30-day ceasefire deal. Sanctions from European nations and the European Union have been in place for some time. Over a dozen rounds of sanctions that have been placed by the European Union on Russia. They're pushing the US to do the same. Trump saying he is waiting some clarity there on a conversation and topic that has been expected to be discussed here at the G7 summit ahead of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arriving as a guest outside of the group of 7 nations, of course, but along with other countries, including South Korea, India, Mexico, and Brazil, who will be represented with their leaders holding discussions. It will be interesting to see as Zelensky arrives in Canada. When he does, we're not sure yet. He has been in Austria, but it will be interesting to see if he can have a discussion with Trump trying to push those sanctions forward as he has been. But we will take a move away now from that statement that we heard from Donald Trump and the accompanying statement from Keir Starmer to bring you some more updates that we have had from the ongoing tensions between Iran and Israel. Just to bring you in for a bit of context, of course, on Friday, Israel launched a huge offensive on Iran. That has continued but has been met with retaliatory strikes by the Iranian military. Israel saying that they have aerial dominance now over the capital, Tehran. Civilians have been killed on both sides. Given the Israeli air defense system that is weighted towards Iran, with over 200 deaths reported. Several of those deaths are leading officials, military, leading scientists, physicists as well. Nuclear sites targeted and decimated on a large scale, though not all of them have been hit. But let's just bring you in now to this update that we have. Israel's UN ambassador in a press conference has just defended strikes on Tehran as the US continues to urge to de-escalate. Here is what Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the UN, had to say.
Serving the IRGC in this effort. We will try to minimize all civilian casualties and to give warnings, but anyone who is cooperating with the IRGC and supporting the efforts of this terror regime should know that we have very good intelligence, and we proved it, and also we have very good control over the skies of Tehran now, so we can watch what's happening and we can take actions in Tehran. Their attacks on our civilians have left 23 dead and more than 600 injured. Last night, 8 more people were murdered and almost 300 injured. Similar pictures like this one we saw in the cities of Bnei Brak, Haifa, and Petah Tikva. Iran's goal is to kill as many civilians as possible. They are not hiding it, they are boasting about it. That is a moral line between us. Iran aims its missiles at children while we target the regime's terror machine. Before we launched Operation Rising Lions, we uncovered clear evidence that the Iranian regime was preparing a war of extermination. They wanted to wipe Israel off the map. They wanted even worse than October 7th, but we stopped them, and we will ensure that it will never happen. We are determined to achieve our objective of Operation Rising Lions, to dismantle their nuclear program, to eliminate the threat of their ballistic missiles, and to neutralize Iran's grand extermination.
Well, we have heard there from Danny Danon. There has been a comment from Iran, in the recent moments as well. I just want to read this to you. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has told 3 European counterparts that Iran is serious about diplomacy and never left the negotiating table. But Tehran's focus now is to confront aggression. Polarising rhetorics there. Similar outcomes in terms of a further escalation from both sides in terms of strikes. To bring you into the picture as well, Iran earlier stated that their attacks on Israel would continue into the morning. Eric Wahlberg, I'm going to bring you back in now. Both sides are reading from a different sheet. Israel accusing Iran of striking civilian targets, stating about their operation that it will continue. Iran saying that they were always at the negotiating table. Their response now is one of confrontation to aggression, with both countries so polarised in ideologies, in terms of opinions, and also rhetoric around this ongoing conflict. How will that be managed by world leaders, including Mark Carney and also Donald Trump?
Well, Trump is the Mephistopheles in all of this, pretending that he's negotiating with Iran And meanwhile, he's pumping arms to Israel. The missiles that Israel's been raining down on Iran were all sent within the last few weeks when Trump was supposedly negotiating. So the negotiations are a complete sham, and Israel, unprovoked, attacked Iran. I mean, it's totally outrageous what's going on. And now Trump says, oh, I hope the two sides can reach a ceasefire. Well, how can you use that terminology with a straight face? Iran is being attacked by Israel, and Iran responded. And then Israel responded again, and it's just going to go on and on, because Israel started this war, and it's determined to overthrow the Iranian government. This idea that it's all about nuclear negotiations is a complete nonsense. Iran has made it very clear it's not interested in a nuclear bomb. It's quite happy to stick at the 3.25% enrichment, which is what's needed for the energy, but also occasionally you need higher for medical purposes. You have to increase to 20% or even 60%. I mean, you do need that medical grade uranium. So that's all done under the inspections of the the International Atomic Agency. So this idea that Iran should not be able to enrich, that's nonsense again. That's just a complete insult to Iran, to say you're just like a little boy and we can't trust you. But it's a member of the non-proliferation treaty. Israel, on the other hand, has had atomic weapons for the last at least 60 years, and it's never acknowledged them. It's never been part of the non-proliferation treaty. It does whatever it likes. So to me, it's so obvious that Iran is completely blameless in all of this, that the US and Israel are to blame. And if some civilians get shot, that is very unfortunate. But Iran does not target civilians. It's targeting at the first missiles landed on the port and the where the refinery for oil and gas, which is what is necessary to bomb Israel. I mean, to bomb Iran, you've got to have your energy and gas, and so
yes.
you bomb those.
Yes.
And so some civilians get killed, and that's a shame. Just stop attacking Iran. That's the bottom line. Stop attacking Iran, and there will be no more bombs from Iran. There will be no more civilians killed. That's end of question. There's no negotiations involved here.
Eric, I'm sorry to interject, but we do have some more updates on this topic. I will come back to you on it. A new wave of missile and drone attacks targeting key Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv and Haifa, is underway. This, according to Iranian sources. The combined operation marks a further escalation in the ongoing conflict between Iran and Israel. IDF forces are reportedly responding to the attacks. Alerts have been issued in affected areas. This, of course, coming amid rising tensions with strikes from both sides. We have an update as well to bring you from Iran. This coming from the Iranian state news agency, the IRNA, which says air defences are highly active in Tehran. This comes after Israel acknowledged that they had air superiority over the Iranian capital. Eric, bringing you back in. Apologies to cut you off earlier. I just wanted to bring those updates so we could discuss them. Both countries still active. Both countries currently overseeing further strikes. Calls from world leaders, from stakeholders for de-escalation seem not to be working for either side. Trump, is he the voice to get this sorted? Is it as easy as Israel stop and Iran stop? Or given the level of strike carried out by Israel, do you think that Iran will want retribution either way?
Well, Iran, yesterday it was at the IRGC announced this war will continue until the annihilation of Israel. That's what the IRGC, which they don't mean to kill everybody. What they mean is to end the apartheid regime. It's a fascist regime that's just hell-bent on killing and destroying people. It's completely mad. So this really, we have to put an end to this. Israel is a complete it's a complete disgrace in the world, and we have to put an end to it. So really, all I can do is wish Iran well in its attempt to overthrow and end this horrible regime that's attacking others and killing, and just what's happening in Gaza alone is enough to make the regime totally indefensible. So I'm not sure about these updates, and it's very terrifying what's going on. We're in World War III. It's absolutely, and I'm afraid that we're on the bad side. We're on the side of the fascists, the Israel, and we have to be able to at least. For myself, I'm protesting that every day, and I identify myself with Canadians that are also protesting this, whereas Carney is completely out of the loop. He's not going to do anything. He's just going to sit back and hope that he can make some more millions with his financial tricks. He's not interested in dealing with Israel in a meaningful way.
Yes, Eric, thank you ever so much for joining us on the programme. I'm now going to move back to Martin Sa-Reyes, who joins us once again from Quito, Ecuador. Martin, an international affairs expert. Thank you so much for rejoining us, Martin. Let's have a look at the current situation. Strikes from both sides currently ongoing. The situation, one of a seeming endless escalation. Israel targeting Iranian military infrastructure and seemingly, as far as reports are concerned, doing a good job at it. Is this a case of Israel will win? It's just how quickly they get the job done from their point of view in terms of Operation Rising Lions.
Joshua, before continuing with this topic, I just want to give a counter comment because I think it's absolutely insane what I just heard. Israel has never started a war. Iran has been attacking Israel with proxies. Hamas has been using the Ayatollah's money for killing civilians in Israel. Also, Hezbollah and in Yemen, the Houthis are being financed by this terror organization. I think it's insane to blame Israel for defending itself. Israel has been targeting only terror infrastructure, never civilians. The opposite, that Iran has been targeting civilians in Israel, have been killing innocent civilians in Israel through the years. So it's absolutely insane to hear that Israel is a regime which is the only democracy in the Middle East. Now, following your question, yes, I think Israel is going to win the war. I think Israel is going to liberate Iran from this terror organization, which is the Ayatollah's regime.
What an asshole you are.
We apologise for that language there.
I'm sorry. I think Israel is going to liberate Iran from the terror from the Iran.
I'm just going to take over for a moment. Martin, sorry to interject
infrastructure
there. Martin, I'm just going to take over for a quick moment. I will come back to you. I just want to apologise again for the language that was used. Martin, if you just give me a minute, I'm just going to provide some context to this. If you are just joining us, our G7 coverage has taken a look at the ongoing issues across the world. That includes, of course, the Middle East, where ongoing tensions are continuing to escalate. Both sides are striking. Warnings have come from world leaders, including those at the G7 summit, including warnings against Iran having nuclear weapons. Keir Starmer earlier stating that all the nations were in unity, though escalating tensions are dividing areas around both countries. fears over wider escalations outside of the Middle East as well. There have been warnings about third-party involvement in this after reports of US military support in limiting those Iranian attacks from impacting civilians in Israel. Also threats made against the United Kingdom, the United States and France at an earlier date, which said if the countries are involved, then that would lead to strikes on bases and shipping. Let's bring in some more news updates for you. And according to reports, the USS carrier Nimitz, a US Navy aircraft carrier, is heading towards the Middle East. This after abruptly cancelling a scheduled port call in Vietnam. The US Embassy in Hanoi cited an emergent operational requirement as the reason. The carrier was last tracked passing through the Malacca Straits, signalling a rapid redeployment. In a separate move, over 30 US Air Force aerial refueling tankers were seen flying east across the Atlantic, raising speculation about a possible large-scale military build-up. This following those warnings that I just informed you about. US involvement has not been direct, though speaking to experts, as we have done throughout the night into this morning, there are a couple of bases that have yet to be hit by Israel, given the fact that they don't have bunker-busting bombs. We have another update to bring you, and that's Israel's Haifa-based Bazan Group has reported that its power station, which is crucial for steam and electricity generation, has been significantly damaged in an Iranian missile strike. All refinery operations have been shut down. In a regulatory filing, the company also confirmed the deaths of 3 employees due to the attack. The strike marks a serious escalation in regional tensions and has dealt a major blow to Israel's energy and industrial infrastructure, though not on the scale that we have seen in Iran. It is clear but must be stated that the military equipment that Israel has is vastly superior, mostly across the board, to what Iran is currently operating with. The jets that are being used, the missiles that are being used, and of course that Iron Dome defense system, something which has limited the amounts of impact that Iranian strikes can have, though there have been civilian deaths reported on both sides. I'm going to bring back in Martin Saar-Arrayas, our international affairs expert, joining from Quito in Ecuador. Martin, thank you for staying with us as we brought those breaking news updates. One thing that we saw earlier in the night was strikes on the Iranian TV, state TV area. It was seen on air when the strike took place. Iran has threatened to hit Israeli media stations, putting a warning out and an evacuation order. What's the significance of striking media outlets at a time of war where information is so key, not just for narrative, propaganda and agenda, if that is the case, but also for information to civilians at this time of war?
I think this is a clear message from Israel to the Iranian regime, because the Iranian regime has been using its media to manipulate the population and to spread lies. For example, yesterday, the regime has been saying that they are winning the war, that the airport of Ben Gurion has been destroyed, which is completely false. And we need to remember and to do, there's a huge difference between the strikes from Israel and from Iran. Israel tells the people to evacuate 1 hour before the strikes, and they're striking only strategic positions such as energy positions, nuclear positions, army positions. The Iranian regime is targeting civilians, killing innocent Israelis in totally normal neighborhoods. We're not talking about targeting any specific Israeli nuclear program. They are killing people, and this is the most anti-Semitic regime in the whole history, their goal is to destroy Israel because of religious reasons, no geopolitical reasons, no territorial reasons, only because these people are fanatics and they want to destroy the Western civilization. So if Israel, well, not if Israel will win the war, and Israel would liberate the world from this threat, and this threat is a threat for all of the people of the Middle East. People in Iran are suffering. They kill homosexuals, they kill women that are not wearing hijab. I mean, we need democracy in the Middle East. People need freedom, peace, and I hope this war will end with this insanity, and Israel is fighting for its survival and for giving the people of Iran democracy. So yeah, is my opinion on how the things are gonna develop the next weeks or months. It's gonna be a very tough war, but it's a very critical war for the existence of the Western civilization.
Martin Saar-Arayes, thank you ever so much for your time. The situation in the Middle East, of course, dominating headlines and also having impacts at the G7 summit. We'll be back with updates on both very soon.